What's good, everybody? The Who Dat Nation. It's the one and only Who Dat Davis here for you. And if you don't know, you will know that over here we bleed black and gold until we are dead and cold. And thank you guys for checking out this edition of the Black and Gold Breakdown Podcast. We have a very special guest. If you guys don't know who he is the host of the Straight Out Saints podcast, partnered with Boot Crew Media, the one and only Chris Rosvoglou. What's going on, Chris? Welcome to the Black and Gold Breakdown Podcast. How you doing today?
I'm doing well, man. Thank you for having me, and I'm glad that I'm joining your podcast on a day where it's a Victory Monday. I feel like that just makes it that much more sweet.
Man, no truer words have ever been spoken. We have quite a bit to break down today. I just want to have this disclaimer out there for anybody. I have been having some internet connection issues. I have don't know what's going on with my neighbors, but I had my Wi-Fi hacked a couple days ago. So I had to reset the router and everything. So if I disconnect, don't worry. It's only going to take a minute or two to get the connection going. With all that being said, let's officially talk about this win for the New Orleans Saints against the New England Patriots. And it's been another defensive showing for the New Orleans Saints as a whole. Particularly, I want to talk about the linebackers. And we feel like we don't give this linebacker core enough credit because for the last 10 or so years, we've been having issues with the linebackers. Most notable one being Alexander Loney and Stephon Anthony, but the linebackers really made their presence felt not only just on defense, but on special teams with Andrew Dowell coming up big on a block punt. Chris, what are your thoughts about even from Andrew Dowell to even Pete Werner looking like he's really good in coverage for this New Orleans Saints defense?
Yeah, I think you did a great job of just hitting the nail on the head. The thing about the Saints linebacker group was week one, Quan was in, and Quan played so well that we didn't really talk about it because we kind of just said, hey, it's DeMario and Quan. We know what we got there, which we do, which is awesome. That's one of the better pairings at linebacker. And then week two hit, and a lot of us, I know myself, I can only speak for myself here, but I know I was excited to see Zach Bond, and unfortunately he just didn't play that well, and Carolina picked on him. So a lot of us all of a sudden took a step back and were like, okay, well, we were really excited about the linebacker depth. What does it look like? And then week three rolls around, and Caden Ellis is flying around to the ball. You have Pete Werner keeping everything in front of him, which you mentioned about that coverage part. Look, it's okay to keep everything in front of you. Just don't get beat behind you, and that's something that Pete Werner did really well. And then, like you mentioned, Andrew Dowell on special teams making a play. So you had three linebackers not named Demario Davis make plays on Sunday, and I think that is fantastic news going forward because you do expect to get Quan Alexander back eventually, and Demario Davis is playing at an elite level still. I would go as far to say he's the best free agent signing not named Drew Brees that the Saints have had. He is just that good. But to your point, yeah, this linebacker group really stepped up, and I don't know if the defense looks as dominant as it did yesterday if those other guys don't step up, because I know we're going to talk about Werner and talk about Andrew Dowell, but man, Caden Ellis too, he played really well. He forced one of the interceptions, the P.J. Williams one. He got a good hit there, and even when Williams fumbled, he was smart enough, although it got ruled down at the 9, he was smart enough to be, have a heads-up play and get the ball. So I thought he was really good. I was impressed with this unit overall.
Very happy that Caden Ellis is seeing some time on the defensive side of the ball. I've wanted to see him a little more last year, but due to injury reasons, that didn't happen. I'm really happy to see him being a playmaker, especially just rushing the passer, which is what I expected more of Zach Bond to do coming out of Wisconsin. He made a living out of getting after the quarterback and rushing off the edge as an outside linebacker. And the fact that Day, as in Dennis Allen, is trying to convert him to a weak side linebacker, it kind of, it scratches a lot of heads for everybody Who Dat Nation, me included. But going into this next topic here, Jeff Duncan, according to him in these stats, the Saints are ranked in 31st, second to worst in terms of total offensive production, but they are one of the best in terms of goal-to-goal situations. They lead the league in total touchdowns in the red zone for 6 for 6, and total in top 2 and 8 for 9. So, but the defense as a whole has been really good. They're 7th in total defense. They are 3rd in rushing defense, and they are top 5 and are number 4 in scoring defense. So, Chris, my question to you right now is the concerns we have on offense and the stats right now for the New Orleans Saints as a whole. Is it more indicative to how good the defense has been playing, or is it more so a concern for the offense, or is it even a little bit of both?
I think it's the last one. I think it's a little bit of both. And I'll tell you, and I'm sure you'll be frustrated about this, it's a little annoying how after the two Saints victories, we've kind of heard, oh, well, the Patriots offense didn't play well, or, oh, the Packers didn't play well. It was a preseason game. Like, no, I think it's time that people start realizing this Saints unit is legit. And they got most of their depth back. I know Quan's on IR and Davenport's still on IR. They're going to come back from IR. That's going to help them even more. Bradley Roby, who they traded for, didn't even play. He had 2 snaps yesterday. They didn't even need him because Paulson Adebo has been that good as a rookie. So I think in terms of the defensive stats, I don't think it's a fluke at all. I think this Saints defense is going to continue to pile up. I mean, they play Daniel Jones and the Giants this week. The following week, it's Taylor Heineke. So I think the Saints defense is legit, and they're going to have chances to show through stats, whether it's the total defense or points per game. It's going to continue to show that it's not a fluke. As for the offense, I'm definitely on the more concerned side, but I do want to point out something that you mentioned about them being successful in the red zone. That's really important because when you have a really good defense and you have an amazing punt returner in Deontay Harris, field position is the name of the game. Like it's gonna be a struggle for the Saints when they're back at their own 20 or back at their own 15 to put together an excellent drive. But hey, if they have good field position, okay, let's see what they can do. And I think they found a nice little blend in terms of the red zone of when to use Taysom Hill, when to throw the football, when to run it. So I like that part, but I am a little concerned because right now the skill players on this team outside of Alvin Kamara, they're lacking.
Speaking of offensive weapons, the Saints are getting back 3 offensive weapons as a whole, one being Tre'Quan Smith, 2 offensive weapons being Tre'Quan Smith, Nick Van Nett, and they're getting offensive lineman back in Will Clapp. Out of these 3, my personal opinion, the biggest one isn't even Tre'Quan Smith and Nick Van Nett. It's Will Clapp. Now, just for offensive line reasons, Teron Armstead went down due to friendly fire from Tony Jones Jr., and you have Eric McCoy out for an unspecified number of reasons. We can assume he's going to be back after the bye week for the Seattle Seahawks. But getting Will Clapp back is a huge for the New Orleans Saints because personally, you can get him. Sean Payton commented on this a little while ago. If Will Clapp was available, he would have been your backup center for the Saints, and that keeps Cesar Ruiz in his starting role as a right guard. And now with Clapp coming back, that plan could be what happens going forward. So, Nick, your concerns right now for the Saints offensive line, and how big is it really that Will Clapp is not back in the fold?
I mean, my concerns are it's really all just injury related, which is I guess is a good thing and also a bad thing. Bad thing that they're getting hurt. Good news is that it's not like it's a actual structural issue with the Saints O-line. It's the fact that 2 of their top guys are now hurt with Armstead and McCoy. I think getting back Clapp will absolutely help this O-line, but I also kind of wonder if Eric McCoy is going to be back sooner than people expected. I always thought that it was going to be after the bye week, but since the Saints didn't put him on IR, I kind of got the feeling that maybe they think he'll be ready for the Giants or the Washington game, maybe even both, who knows. And if that's the case, then that really helps. And then the Clapp, getting back Clapp just turns into a depth piece, which, by the way, there's no problem with that. Obviously, you can never have enough depth on the O-line. But I think it's definitely a move that helps. You mentioned also Vanette and Tre'Quan Smith. I just want to throw it out there because a lot of fans, I know we all know what Tre'Quan Smith brings to the table. Nick Vanette, I think, is going to be another guy who's underrated, provides depth. And if the Saints are going to be this team that really values running the football, having an elite blocking tight end like Nick Vanette, that's really his specialty, I think that's going to help. But going back to the Clapp move, it absolutely will help the depth purposes. And I just do wonder if he sees the field, though, because I think McCoy is getting close to at least returning to practice. That's how I feel about that.
Speaking of Nick Van Nett, the tight end production for New Orleans Saints is, in my opinion, obviously the worst in the league so far. Adam Trautman being a huge disappointment so far. Not sure what's going on with him, not getting separation on his routes. Either that or Jameis Winston just not trusting him with the football. Juwan Johnson, we had a little bit of hope for him being the receiving tight end, kind of like a Darren Waller or a Darren Fells. I'm hoping that Nick Van Nett can come to this team and add that spark, get that chemistry going with, he and Adam Trautman, because he talked about being more, being just as good as a receiving tight end that he is as a blocking tight end. But I'm kind of losing faith in Adam Trautman right now. Maybe he's just not ready for the spotlight just yet. We don't know. But hopefully Nick Van Nett getting into this fall, being that mentor to Adam Trautman can be the thing that he needs to finally wake up. But we have to talk about the quarterbacks, Jameis Winston, because it's been a talk of the town for the last 24 hours, and rightfully so. According to a lot of people, Jameis Winston has looked either pretty okay or has looked really pedestrian, or he's been saved on a handful of plays, one being at the goal line. According to Jameis Winston, he was throwing it out of bounds, but Marquez Callaway bailed him out. They were high-pointing the football, having a touchdown in the back of the end zone. What are your impressions of Jameis Winston so far through these first 3 weeks of the game of the season.
Yeah, I thought week one, I know it's easy to say he looked excellent because of 5 touchdowns, but I was really impressed. I thought week one he kind of looked like what Teddy Bridgewater did in Teddy's best games in terms of just moving the chains, taking what the defense gives you, don't make mistakes. Week two, he wasn't good week two, but no one offensively was good week two. That was that's one of those throwaway games you just don't even look at. You just put it away. They won't play as bad as they did for the rest of the season as they did in week two. As for week three, it was kind of a mixed bag. In the first half, I thought he made some strong throws down the field, particularly one to Kenny Stills, another one to Deontay Harris, and then one on the outside to Marquez Callaway as well. The only concern that I really have right now, and I wish my all-22 film was working. I don't know why it hasn't been working for Game Pass, but I want to see what the main issue is on the plays where Jameis is holding the football very long. Is it in terms of is the receivers, are they not getting separation? Is it Jameis is nervous of throwing a 50-50 ball and he'd rather just play it safe? I would love to know that combination. I think my biggest concern right now is just finding a way for these decisions to be a little bit faster. I'm not completely discouraged by Jameis. I do hope, though, when they get weapons back in the fold, like a Michael Thomas, like a Traquan Smith, they can open it up a little bit. Because right now, the Saints are doing everything they can to be conservative, but still get a win. And that's why we saw, really, for the most part, the game plan was kind of dry until that final drive when it was like, okay, it's go time. The Saints have to put up a touchdown here to kind of just stop the Patriots' momentum. So I'm not going to say I'm out on Jameis. I will say, though, that I haven't been overly impressed, but it's also – there's a mix right now. The O-line's going through a weird phase. The skill players, which we complained about going into the season, well, they're not that talented, and now it's starting to show. So there's so many factors that I can't solely blame Jameis, and I won't solely blame Jameis, but I do hope he gets the ball out a little bit quicker in terms of his decision-making.
I definitely agree with you on that. Decision-making for Jameis Winston has to be paramount, especially when you're dealing with a mixed-shape offensive line. Give your guys some breathing room, and that's another head-scratcher. To your point, when we saw week one, Jameis, one thing that stood out to me not only was his decision making, but his ability to use his legs to scramble out of the pocket, pick up some yardage with his legs, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 7, keep ahead of the chains. We have not seen that kind of week one Jameis, not week 2 or week 3, and I honestly think that's due in part to Sean Payton. I think he saw that second scramble out of the pocket on 3rd and 8. He took that shot to his throwing shoulder and thought, no, can't have that. I need him healthy for the long haul. So I believe he's trying to play a little too conservative, trying to keep him inside of the pocket, which is fine. But if you're going to do that, you would figure Taysom Hill would get more of those reps. And with the late drive during the fourth quarter, I think we're going to see a little more of that going forward because now you see that Taysom Hill is getting back into that 2019 form, keeping ball security, being physical in those types of 30 mediums or yardages and yardage situations. The receivers, I think we just underestimated how valuable Traquan Smith is to this team now. With Marquez Callaway, Deontay Harris, Chris Hogan, a lot of guys not very experienced with this team, and Traquan Smith adds another level of experience needed to steer this receiving core in the right direction. Now you have Kenny Stills into the fold, right? So, Chris, I'm trying to wrap my head around this, and maybe you can help me out. I'm looking ahead to next week's game with Traquan Smith. He's supposed to come back this week, come out for IR. How big of an impact do you expect Traquan Smith to have, not only just in this next game with the Giants, but going forward into the season?
Yeah, I'll put it this way. Let's just take out any week and just say whenever Traquan returns, what do we kind of expect? I think it's kind of two things. One, it's the run blocking from a receiver standpoint. I think that really helps out, especially if you're going outside with these runs. Having a guy in the perimeter who could block is really crucial, and that's something that Traquan's going to bring regardless of how he's faring as a receiver. As for an actual pass catcher, I think if you're a Saints fan, you are definitely worried about the injury-prone history of Traquan Smith, and, if he does return, how long is he going to be on the field? Sure. Let's say he's just on the field. We don't worry about the injury part for a second. I think it's fair to say that a quarterback who can stretch the field probably helps out Traquan Smith a little bit more. His game at UCF was actually kind of tending towards the deep vertical threat than it was when he comes to the Saints, and you realize a lot of his short to intermediate stuff because of Drew Brees. So I think you can see Traquan Smith from that 15 yards and more really become a factor, whether it's over the middle of the field, he makes tough catches in traffic, whether it's down the sideline. And I'm not saying that trick play against Tampa Bay in the playoffs is kind of the glimpse of what you'll see, but it is worth noting that Traquan can get down the field. And, I know a lot of people are frustrated with the injury history and frustrated that he's not really available much, but you look at this receiving room right now, I would welcome Traquan Smith with open arms. I think he would easily be one of their top guys, maybe even their top guy in terms of having the experience in Sean Payton's system and also just being the most versatile from a run blocking and receiving standpoint. So I think he would bring a lot to this team. And you're looking at a receiving core that's really struggling to even get a guy with 40 to 50 yards per game receiving. I think Traquan can easily do that if he's healthy. So I think he would make a tremendous impact on this team. And it's also worth noting, guys, like, they need help anywhere. So I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's Traquan right now or we're talking about Michael Thomas in 3-4 weeks from now. Take them all on. They need all the help they can get in that department.
Absolutely. I'm fine with that. Michael Thomas, Traquan Smith, Kenny Stills, Marquez Callaway, Deontay Harris. I'm fine with that five right there. That's just me, though. But my final question is going to be about the defensive ends for the New Orleans Saints. Karen Jordan, Peyton Turner, Marcus Davenport. But a name we are surprisingly are praising right now is Tanoh Kpassagnon, a signing from the Kansas City Chiefs. From week one, he's looking like one of the best defensive ends in terms of pass rushing, and he's looking like he's making Marcus Davenport a little obsolete in these early, or like at least early on into this season. What are your thoughts about Tanoh Kpassagnon and even first round draft pick Peyton Turner, and what they've done so far with on the Saints defensive line?
Yeah, I think they've been outstanding. I thought Peyton Turner's debut last week was incredible, and unfortunately just got overshadowed by the fact that the Saints didn't play well. And instead of talking about all the pressures he generated and the sack that he had and the way he was able to defend the run, we all kind of said, hey, what's wrong with the offense? And I get it, but he deserved, his round of applause for that game. And I know his snap count wasn't that high this weekend, but you got to take into account that he's dealing with an elbow injury. And like you mentioned, Tanoh was playing great. And on the other side, by the way, Cam Jordan played pretty great too. I know the sack number wasn't there, and that's what fans are looking for, but he was great against the run. He was constantly in Mac Jones's face. And yeah, look, he didn't hit home and kind of close out one of those plays, but man, he was a threat the whole game. So I think the whole D-line in terms of this defensive end group, I think what they've kind of shown is what we were hoping would be the case. Have a really, really solid rotation where, yeah, maybe you don't have a Myles Garrett or a Nick Bosa or, an Aaron Donald where you have that one dominant guy that just controls the line. But how about a rotation that can wear down opposing offensive lines? Right now, the Saints have 4 quality defensive ends. When Davenport comes back, you'll have 5 quality defensive ends. And honestly, I know this might sound crazy for some Saints fans. I think in terms of just sheer talent, Davenport's the most talented one. And when he comes back, if he can stay healthy, and it's such a big if, so obviously just take this with a grain of salt here. If Davenport stays healthy, I think this D-line is absolutely going to take over games. I think when you have a guy like Davenport who, yeah, when he needs a breather, well, guess what? Here comes Peyton Turner who looks like a clone of him. That's just tough news. And when you got Cam on the other side and you got Tanoh doing his thing, who, by the way, can move in the interior if he has to, and David Onyemata's not even back yet, this defensive line group, we were worried about them going into the season because of depth and not knowing a lot of new faces, what this was going to look like. But I am totally encouraged by what I've seen. And Ryan Nielsen hasn't even been in the last 2 games. He's going to come back for this Giants game. So I think this D-line is absolutely one of the key units on this Saints team, and I think they're only going to get better.
Speaking of getting better, I know I said I was going to let you go after this, but you just I had to get this question out there for you too, real quick, Chris. In terms of improvement, outside of the obvious, wide receivers, they're playing against the Giants, who the record doesn't do them justice. This is still a really good football team, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And they have a lot of weapons on the offensive side of the ball, as far as Kenny Golladay, Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton, Kyle Rudolph. He's been a thorn of our sides over the last 2 years. What do you think the biggest problem? What do you think the biggest problem is the Giants pose to the Saints, and what do they need to do to make sure that doesn't happen?
Yeah, I think for the Giants, I think it's 2 things. One, I want to see how the Saints play a full game without Armstead. The Giants' defensive line, I know it's not filled with household names, but they did a really good job getting after Matt Ryan on Sunday, and I am a little worried in that department. Well, can they keep Jameis upright? That's a concern. I would say on the flip side, defensively, I'd be worried about the weapons, but I got to be honest with you, after last game against the Falcons, we always talk about the Saints injury report and how's it going to look. Well, I'm kind of interested to see how the Giants injury report looks because Slayton and Shepard both left the game with hamstring injuries. If one or both of them cannot play, I think that changes the whole game because you're basically sticking Lattimore on Golladay, and you're just worrying about Kadarius Toney. But to not have two guys like a Shepard and Darius Slayton, that would be big. Even if one of them misses that game, that totally changes the complexion. But let's say they're healthy. I think that would put the Saints secondary to the test because you're versing not one, not two, but three quality receivers. And then you have a gadget-type player like Kadarius Toney who's really talented. And you mentioned Kyle Rudolph and Evan Ingram. Those are also names to watch out for sure. But I'm really interested in that. And then also a key thing I'll just throw in there. The Giants' their star linebacker, Blake Martinez, he's been – I don't want to say one of the better linebackers in the league, but he's been one of the better tackling linebackers in the league. He unfortunately tore his ACL on Sunday against the Falcons. And if you're the Saints, you're probably going to test their linebacker group with Alvin Kamara and kind of see what you could get there. So the Saints have been dealing with a lot of injuries, but the Giants got hammered by injuries on Sunday against the Falcons. So I do think health's going to play a factor in this game for sure.
Health for sure. Secondary, I can't wait to see what they do against a receiving core like that. And they can hang with receivers like that. They can hang with pretty much anybody, especially in the NFC South going forward. But Chris, thank you very much for being a guest here on the Black and Gold Breakdown podcast. I'm hoping I can do more of these going forward with you and vice versa. I love talking shop with you on Twitter. Speaking of Twitter, let everybody know how they can reach out to you in terms of social media.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that, man. Anytime you need me, let me know. I love talking Saints. People can hit me up on Twitter at Rosvoglou Report, ROSVOGLOU Report. The two of us are always chatting on Twitter. So for people who think that no one's going to reply, just hit us up with anything Saints related, and we'll always be down to talk Saints. I appreciate it, man.
No problem, Chris. No problem, Chris. And thank you to everybody who's checked out the chat here at Black and Gold Breakdown podcast. It's your boy, Who-Dat Davis, and Chris Rosvoglou here, the host of Straight Up Saints podcast. I will make sure to include all the social media links in the comment section below. Make sure to pin it. So you guys go show him some support. Go shout out to Boot Crew Media as well. I'll put their social media handle down in the comment section immediately following the conclusion of this live stream. Thank you guys very much. And as always, it's Black and Gold until we are dead and cold. Check you guys out later this week when we talk more about the Saints versus